My roommate got a plunder system that stole my childhood friend, my grades, my looks, and my money. Then she tried to steal the luck of the person I love most. But she never expected that luck to be so powerful it would make her spontaneously combust. She didn't know that the one I love is my country. Claire, in my 15 years as a teacher, I have never had a student as bad as you. You failed every single subject on the final exam. What on earth are you doing? Where does all your time go? Are you too busy eating? Look at you, you look like a pig. What's in your head, lard? The homeroom teacher jabbed his finger hard against my forehead, and the classroom erupted in jeers. I lowered my head in shame, trying to shrink my 220-pound body into a ball. Tiffany Jiang clapped her hands, laughing. Claire, stop shrinking. Your shirt button's about to pop. Just as she said it, with a pop, the button on my chest couldn't take the strain of me hunching over and shot across the room. The laughter in the class grew louder. I frantically covered my chest with my hands, and the tears I'd been holding back finally broke free, streaming down my cheeks. The teacher sneered. I'm not crying. You have the nerve to cry. If you have time to cry, you have time to get your butt back to studying. The teacher stormed out. The boys in the class slammed their desks and roared with laughter. A few even made a point to walk past my desk, glance at me, and pretend to gag. Ugh, she's got acne all over her chest. So gross, I am gonna puke. Tiffany looked at me with disgust. Claire, how did you let yourself get like this? You used to be the campus queen, you know. I wiped my tears, bewildered. That's right. How did I become like this? I got into this top-tier high school with the best entrance exam score. For 2 years, I represented the school in all sorts of competitions, bringing back a trophy every time. The homeroom teacher used to say I was the most brilliant student he'd ever taught. But ever since senior year started, for some reason, my brain just stopped working. I studied desperately, sleeping only 5 hours a night and going over my lessons again and again. But everything I memorized seemed to flow out of my brain like water, leaving no trace behind. My body started ballooning, too. I exercised as hard as I could, dared to eat only 1 meal a day, and even ran for an hour on the track after evening study hall. Yet I just kept inflating like a balloon, day by day. I truly had no idea how any of this was happening. A classmate snickered. What other reason could there be? Everything she used to do was for Leo. Now that Leo likes you, she's just given up. Everyone laughed even harder. Amid the noise, a tall guy in a black jacket, hands in his pockets, walked up to my desk with a grim face. I clutched the fabric at my chest, looking up with a sliver of hope. Leo, can I borrow your jacket? Leo and I had grown up together. We lived in the same neighborhood and went to the same kindergarten, elementary, middle, and high school. He was my best friend, the person in the world who knew me best. 6 months ago, when I started getting fat and ugly and my grades plummeted, even my own parents couldn't help but lose their temper and yell at me. Only Leo supported me, just like always. He was convinced something was medically wrong with me. He would save up his allowance to take me to the hospital. When the doctors said my test results were normal, he would plead with them. Doctor, please. Claire used to be so smart. Could you please run the tests again? We were kicked out of the hospital, and on the way home, I burst into tears. Leo took me to the riverbank and told me to look at my reflection in the water. The sun was setting, and the water's shimmering surface reflected a fat, ugly girl with a red, crying nose. But Leo pointed to the radiant sunset glowing above my head. See that, Claire? You're glowing. I know how hard you're trying. In my eyes, you'll always be the brilliant, shining Claire. Just a week ago, he had secretly taken me to a temple, saying that if medicine didn't work, we'd try the supernatural. He prayed to every deity around, certain it would cure me. No matter what anyone else thought of me, Leo would always be on my side. I stared at him, my eyes red. I watched as he lifted his arm, tugged at his jacket, and then sneered. Lend you my jacket? You'd probably rip it. The class erupted in laughter. My heart clenched, and the blood drained from my face. Leo wrapped his arm around Tiffany's waist and shot an annoyed glance at the classmates who had just spoken. Listen up. I like Tiffany. So stop trying to connect me with this fat pig, got it? Then he glared at me, What are you looking at, you ugly freak? And why are you covering your chest? With a body like yours, even if you were naked, no one would look twice. Anyone who did would have nightmares. The laughter around me intensified. I couldn't stand it anymore. Crying, I ran out of the classroom as their jeers followed me. It was evening study hall, so the academic building was brightly lit, but the athletic field was a pool of darkness. I ran toward it, the streetlights stretching my shadow long and thin behind me. I felt like my life was the same way. All the light was fading, and if I just kept running forward, I'd plunge headfirst into darkness, completely powerless to stop it. Sobbing, I ran lap after lap around the track. The phone in my pocket buzzed nonstop. The teacher had told my parents my midterm exam results. My dad called, his voice a torrent of abuse. "Claire, how can you even stand to be alive? Even a pig, if it studied for a semester, wouldn't get scores this low. And you lied to me, telling me you were working hard every day. What have you been doing? Is this how you repay your mother and me?" "Dad." I choked out, but before I could say more, my dad started crying. "Don't you have any idea that the family is bankrupt? Do you know your mom is working at a supermarket now, and I'm hauling bricks at a construction site? Do you think that tuition money is easy to come by? All our hard work to send you to school, what was it all for?" It was the first time I'd ever heard my dad cry. I gripped the phone, my heart twisting into a knot. I knew things at home weren't great, but I never imagined it was this bad. My parents started their business early. They had both known hardship, so they were always risk-averse. My dad's old motto was better safe than sorry. Our family had been successful for years, and our company was well regarded locally. My dad had said that with the economy slowing down, he'd rather earn less than take on debt. But a month ago, as if possessed, he had mortgaged all our assets and thrown all the money into the stock market. After he lost the money, my parents' attitude toward me got worse by the day. In moments of anger, they'd tear me down until I felt worthless. "Claire, you should just drop out. Even an idiot, someone with brain damage, wouldn't get scores like yours across so many subjects. You used to brag about becoming a scientist and serving your country when you grew up. With grades like these, the only thing you'll be is a drain on society." After hanging up, I huddled in a corner of the track, and for the first time, the thought of ending my life entered my mind. Dad was right. How could I face being alive? All my efforts were just a mirage. I was only going to get dumber and fatter, hated by the entire world. I gathered a few sharp, broken rocks from nearby, and arranged them on the ground before climbing onto the bleachers stage. With my weight, if I just fell backward like this, the rocks would hit the back of my head. It should be an easy way to die. I slowly shuffled to the edge and spread my arms. Just one more step back, and I could leave this world that despised me and be free forever. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. Just then, I heard voices drifting from a distance. "Tiffany, your grades are so good. Have you thought about what college you want to go to?" It was Leo and Tiffany, holding hands and strolling across the field. I quickly hid, crouching down and tucking my body behind a row of chairs. "Harvard, of course." Leo laughed. "Wow, impressive. You're the smartest girl I've ever met. In just one semester, you went from the bottom 100 to number 1 in the school. How does your brain even work?" "Oh, stop it. Don't bring up the past. I was just goofing off before. Now that I'm serious about studying, of course I'm doing well." "Damn. You're way better than that loser Claire. She only got a 6 on the math test. It's hilarious. You could guess on a couple of multiple choice questions and get more than that." Tiffany giggled for a moment, then wrapped her arm around Leo's, pouting playfully. "And you used to be so nice to her. Ugh, I can't stand her holier-than-thou act. Do you know how pathetic she is? The other night during our late-night dorm talk, we were talking about what we wanted to be. She said she wanted to be a scientist. Oh please, give me a break. That's the kind of thing you say as a kid to impress people. Who actually wants to be a scientist now?" I argued with her, told her she'd get famous faster as an influencer. And you know what she said? She said she wasn't doing it for fame, but to build up the country. Ha 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 ha. I almost died laughing. That psycho. She's seriously crazy. And the other guys used to like her so much. Just looking at her makes me want to puke. Tiffany stood with her hands on her hips, cackling like a hen. But Leo wasn't laughing. He stood there, stone-faced, and let out an impatient breath. What's wrong? Tiffany tugged anxiously at Leo's hand. Let's not talk about her. Leo, there's no one else here. Don't you want to do something? She stood on her tiptoes and closed her eyes. Leo leaned down slightly, hesitated twice, then turned away and let out a deep sigh. Some other time. I just remembered I have something to do. As if on cue, his phone rang. He answered it as he turned and walked away. Tiffany was so angry she kicked several small rocks. My legs were numb from crouching. Just as I was about to crawl out from under the chairs, Tiffany spoke again. System, I don't think Leo has completely fallen for me. Did you mess something up? A mechanical, monotone voice sounded in the air. Impossible. You plundered Leo's love for Claire Shen. My data shows the plunder was successful. There can be no mistake. Then why is he still acting like this with me? I guess his love for Claire wasn't as deep as I thought. Tiffany grumbled, grinding her foot into the grass. Well, that's no fun. If she loses that kind of love, she'll probably bounce back in 3 days. Lame. Hurry up and help me think. What else can I plunder from her? The system was silent for a moment before offering a piece of reluctant advice. Host, why are you so fixated on her? You've already plundered her wealth, beauty, grades, and love. Isn't that enough? She has almost nothing left to lose. Tiffany scoffed. So what? Compared to the pain she caused me back then, this is nothing. I could barely believe my ears. A system? Plundering? The stuff from web novels was actually real. So for the past 6 months, all my misfortunes had been caused by Tiffany. But I couldn't understand what she was talking about. What pain had I caused her? Tiffany and I had been roommates for 2 years, and our relationship had always been fine. Her grades were poor, so she often asked me for help with homework. Even when I was short on time, I would patiently explain things to her. Every weekend when I came back from home, I'd bring a ton of fruit and snacks to share with all my roommates. Tiffany always took them casually, smiling and saying, Claire's the most generous. We weren't best friends, but we never had any conflicts. I racked my brain but couldn't think of any way I could have offended her. If I had to pinpoint something, it was one time when Tiffany suddenly asked me if there was a man named Jiang Jigang working at my dad's company. I was studying at the time and didn't even look up. I don't know. I never get involved with my dad's company. The other girls in the dorm overheard and asked Tiffany curiously, Who's that? His last name is Jiang too. Is he a relative of yours? Your relative works for Claire's family? Chloe in particular covered her mouth and giggled, winking at Tiffany. You both have the last name Jiang. Maybe it's your dad, Tiffany. Are you trying to get Claire to give your dad a promotion? You'd better start sucking up to Claire. How about you start by getting us all some hot water? Tiffany's face went pale. You're crazy. Who said Jiang Jigang is my dad? Just because Claire's dad is a boss, mine has to be his employee. You guys really look down on me. The atmosphere grew tense. I put down my homework and tried to comfort her. Chloe's just messing with you. Don't listen to her. Yeah, we were just joking. The other roommates chimed in to smooth things over. But Chloe, having been snapped at by Tiffany, felt she'd lost face and shot back. What's the big deal if your dad works for a living? Every time Claire brings snacks, you're the first one to grab them. You're basically her little servant. What's with the attitude? Chloe stormed out with her thermos. Tiffany was so angry her eyes turned red. She pushed all the snacks she had just accepted back onto my desk. Take them back. I don't want your stuff. Later, after I spent a while coaxing her, Tiffany took the snacks back, and we all moved on. Could she really hate me this much just because of that? Was there some kind of misunderstanding? Tiffany stayed on the stage for half an hour, talking back and forth with the system. I understood that the system's plunder function wasn't unlimited. It could only plunder one thing per month, and it took time to digest the effects. Just like my grades, which got worse day by day, and my body, which got fatter and fatter, it was a gradual process, not something that happened in an instant. Most importantly, if it plundered something beyond its capacity to handle, it would suffer a backlash. I listened for a while but still couldn't figure out how to solve my current predicament. I didn't have a system, and I had no idea how to stop its plundering. I was completely powerless against whatever it did to me. After thinking it over and over, it seemed like my only option was to beg Tiffany to return what she'd taken. Even just a part of it, enough so my life wasn't so miserable. It sounded cowardly and useless, but at the time, I honestly couldn't think of a better solution. After Tiffany left, I crawled out from behind the chairs and went back to the study hall to review my lessons. The earlier suicidal thoughts had vanished. I was starting to feel a flicker of hope for the future again. I naively thought that Tiffany was just holding a grudge over the Mr. Jiang incident, and if I could clear up the misunderstanding, she would forgive me. That weekend, I couldn't wait to go home with my homework. As soon as I left the school gate, I saw my dad squatting on the ground, smoking, his face a mask of despair. I hadn't seen him in just a week, but he looked so much more haggard. His temples were streaked with white hair, a stark contrast to his former confident self. Dad. My heart ached as I walked over to him with my backpack. He let out a cold snort and extinguished his cigarette. "You still have the nerve to call me Dad?" In front of so many other students, my dad didn't say much else. He wheeled over an electric scooter and told me to get on. The scenery flew by as the scooter weaved through the streets, moving farther and farther away from the city center. I asked, confused, "Dad, where are we going?" "The court repossessed the house today. My dad had sold our car 2 weeks ago. I never thought we'd lose the house too." I sighed, knowing it wasn't his fault. It was all because of Tiffany and her system. We were in a dark, old apartment building. The apartment was tiny, with no dining room. The food was set on a coffee table in front of the sofa, and the three of us sat on low stools around it. I asked my dad if he knew a man named Jiang Jigang. My dad's expression immediately turned ugly. "Don't mention that scumbag to me. Did he used to work for your company? Dad, was there some kind of misunderstanding between you two?" My dad slammed his chopsticks on the table, his face dark. "Misunderstanding. Anyone who knows that snake is cursed. Don't you ever say his name again." He was so angry he didn't even want to eat. He went out to the hallway to smoke. My mom sighed. "Claire, don't blame your father. He's been through a lot lately and can't control his temper. He still loves you. He regretted scolding you the other day, but was too proud to apologize. He even took time off from the construction site today just to pick you up from school. Why are you suddenly asking about this Jiang Jigang? He's not a good person. Stay away from him." My mom told me that Mr. Jiang had been a security guard at my dad's company. He wasn't educated and had even been to prison for theft. When he first applied for the job, HR rejected him after reviewing his background. It was pouring rain that day, and he refused to leave the company entrance, getting soaked to the bone. He looked pathetic. He begged my dad, swearing he had turned over a new leaf. He said his child was very promising, that his daughter was a great student, and had even gotten into the city's top high school that year. The top high school? She must be a classmate of our Claire. My dad's heart softened, and he hired him. But it didn't take long for the man's old habits to resurface. My dad's company made hardware supplies. Mr. Jiang was supposed to be watching the warehouse, but at night, he'd secretly load up truck after truck with goods to sell on the side. At first, the amounts were small. When my dad found out, he just warned him. Every time, Mr. Jiang would burst into tears and get on his knees, begging for another chance. One time he'd say his 80-year-old mother was gravely ill, the next, he'd claim his daughter in school couldn't even afford tuition. He shamelessly came up with all sorts of excuses. At first, my dad sympathized with him, thinking he was driven to desperation. But after it happened several times, my dad realized he was being played and fired him without a second thought. He was fired about 6 months ago. After that, I don't know what kind of luck he stumbled into, but he seemed to have made a lot of money. He came back the day the company went bankrupt. In front of everyone, he told your father to get on his knees and bow to him, saying he'd lend your dad 10,000 for every bow. That smug, gloating face of his, it makes me sick just thinking about it. My mom frowned in disgust as she carried the leftovers back to the kitchen. His daughter's last name is also Jiang. Is she in your class? 6 months ago? That was right around the time Tiffany and Chloe had that fight. So, was it because Mr. Jiang was fired that Tiffany wanted to plead with me? But after Chloe's taunts, she was too proud to ask, so she just let it go. Soon after, she must have gotten that plunder system. With its help, her family made a comeback, stomping my family into the ground. And I was supposed to go back and beg someone like that? A fire ignited in my heart. Just because her father was fired for stealing, she took all her anger out on me, plundering everything I had, practically wanting me dead. How could a person with such a twisted character get a system? Aren't good people supposed to be rewarded? Is the universe blind? The moment that thought crossed my mind, a loud clap of thunder shook the entire building. Outside, lightning flashed and rain began to pour. My mom jumped. "Claire, hurry, go get the laundry from the hallway." Our apartment didn't have a balcony, but the corridor between our unit and the next one faced south, so my mom usually hung our clothes there. I opened the door and saw 2 other people in the hallway. My dad stood with his back to me, his shoulders slumped, nodding and bowing to the other man. "It's so late and it's raining. We can't move out now. Could you give us one more day? Tomorrow, I promise. I'll call the moving company first thing in the morning. Please." The landlord snorted. "Today you say tomorrow. Tomorrow you'll say the day after. What, you're just not planning on leaving? I make everyone else pay 3 months' rent plus a deposit. You're the only one who shamelessly insisted on paying for just 1 month. I took pity on you, but you need to show me some consideration, too. Someone else has offered to rent this place for double the price. I won't even charge you for this past week. Just stop talking and get out." As he spoke, the landlord walked over to the clothesline, yanked our laundry down, and threw it on the floor. "Leave now." My dad forced a smile and offered the landlord a cigarette. "Brother, just 1 more day. My kid goes back to school tomorrow. After that, I can crash anywhere. Look, just 1 day." A triumphant laugh echoed from the stairwell. "What's the use in begging him? Shinyan Shan, if you get on your knees and bow to me 3 times, I'll let you stay for 3 more days. How about it?" A short, thin-faced man stood at the bend in the stairs, arms crossed, looking up and smirking at my dad. My dad's face turned ashen. "Jiangji Gang." The landlord turned, surprised. "He's the one renting my apartment. You 2 know each other?" "Well, you can talk to him yourselves. It's not my problem anymore." The landlord dusted off his hands and left. Mr. Jiang and his men barged into our apartment, plopped down on the sofa, and kicked the coffee table away with his foot. "Either get on your knees or get out with your stuff. Your choice." As he spoke, he looked me up and down curiously. "Who's this fatso?" My mom stood at the bedroom door, her face grim. "Claire, come over to mom." Mr. Jiang grinned and spat a thick wad of phlegm on the floor. "Pa, this ugly thing is your daughter? That can't be right. A beautiful woman like you. How could you have a kid that looks like this? No wonder my Tiffany wasn't willing to serve you." I froze. "Serve me? Tiffany and I are just classmates. What are you talking about? What else could I mean? I worked for your dad, so she had to wait on you, right?" It turned out that after Mr. Jiang started working at the company, he couldn't wait to get home and ask Tiffany if there was a girl named Claire Shen at her school. Tiffany nodded. "She's in my class. We're even in the same dorm room." "Perfect." Mr. Jiang slapped his hands together in excitement. "That's our boss's daughter. Tiffany, you have to suck up to her, serve her well, and get her dad to give me a raise." Tiffany put down her book, annoyed. "What do you mean, serve her? We're classmates, not some ancient servant. That sounds horrible." Before she could finish, Mr. Jiang slapped her hard across the face. He jumped to his feet, pointing at her nose and screaming, "You think you're so high and mighty? I'm out there groveling like a dog, and you want to play the princess at home. If it weren't for me groveling to earn money, what would you eat? What would you drink? How would you pay for school? And now you're putting on airs in front of me? Who do you think you are?" Tiffany's mother also chimed in, blaming her for being inconsiderate. "Your dad works hard enough. Can't you be a little more understanding and help him out? This world runs on connections. So what if you're classmates? Plenty of people get things done through their classmates. You just don't want to lift a finger for this family. From then on, every week after school, Mr. Jiang would ask Tiffany how she was getting along with me, and when she was going to invite me over to their house. Tiffany came from a modest background and had worked incredibly hard to get into a top high school. She had her own pride and self-respect. The more her parents pushed her, the more she refused to say a word about it at school. Because of this, she was beaten by her father every few days. Mr. Jiang looked me up and down, shaking his head in disgust. Way too ugly. No wonder Tiffany refused. Shan, with your looks and your wife's, this daughter doesn't add up. You sure she's not someone else's kid? He then gave my mom a lecherous stare. You're not too picky, ma'am. In that case, why not consider me? Mr. Jiang propped his legs up on the coffee table, a cigarette dangling from his fingers. A husband and wife are like birds in a forest, flying their separate ways when disaster strikes. Shan is finished. Ma'am, you don't have to go down with him, do you? Look at you, your skin is as smooth as an 18-year-old's. Do you really need to be working at a supermarket? As he spoke, Mr. Jiang walked toward my mom and tried to grab her hand. Why don't you come with me? I'll even take care of this ugly daughter of yours. What do you say? My mom trembled with rage. Get out. Get out. Mr. Jiang sneered. This is my goddamn house. Who are you telling to get out? My dad clenched his fists and stood between him and my mom. Fine, we're leaving now. Even if I, Shan, am reduced to begging on the streets, I will never ask you for anything. My dad was tall and imposing. Standing in front of Mr. Jiang, his face livid, he towered over him by a full head. Mr. Jiang didn't dare to make a move. He stepped aside, checking the watch on his wrist. CEO Shan is still so full of pride. Get out then. I'll give you 1 hour to get out of my house. My mom suppressed her anger and went into the bedroom to pack. We had nothing left but the bare essentials. We filled a few large bags and were ready to go quickly. The three of us trudged downstairs into the pouring rain. Suddenly, a bright white light flashed before my eyes. I instinctively shielded my face. Tiffany stood there, holding an umbrella in one hand and a phone in the other, snapping pictures of me and cackling. Claire, where are you guys going? Want my dad to give you a ride? She pointed to a brand new black Mercedes parked nearby. Just bought it today. No one else has had a chance to ride in it yet. The car window rolled down. Leo sat in the back seat, his expression indifferent. Rain had plastered his bangs to his forehead, making his dark eyes seem even blacker, and his features look as sharp as if carved from stone. You dragged me out here in the middle of the night just to show me this? Tiffany stuck her tongue out at me. Oh, I forgot. Leo was the first one to ride in it. Tiffany pointed a finger at me. Leo, do you see this? Claire, the liar, who pretended to be a rich kid. Look at the dump she lives in. And even for a place this shabby, her family can't afford the rent and is getting kicked out by the landlord. Her parents are this poor, yet she still has the nerve to eat until she's this fat. You were best friends with someone like this for over a decade. Doesn't it make you sick? Leo's gaze lingered on me for a fraction of a second. Disgusting. If I look any longer, I'll lose my appetite for dinner. Aren't you leaving? Leo's answer pleased Tiffany. She smiled sweetly, linked arms with her father, and told him to take the other car. She and Leo were going to grab a late-night snack and would be home later. Her father, now completely obedient, did as he was told, a total reversal of his old attitude. After her father left, Tiffany dangled her phone in front of my face. I took a bunch of pictures. I'll pick the one that makes you look skinniest and post it in the class group chat, okay? Which one should I choose? Leo, you help me pick. Tiffany started to walk away under her umbrella, but I called out to her. Tiffany, your past suffering wasn't my fault. You shouldn't hate me. Tiffany's hand tightened on the umbrella handle. Even if it wasn't for me, some other classmates' parents would have been rich and powerful, and he would have, Tiffany spun around and slapped me hard across the face. I was completely unprepared. My head whipped to the side, and a loud ringing filled my ears. My mom cried out and rushed in front of me. Why did you hit her? Because Claire is a bitch and she deserves it. Tiffany gritted her teeth, her eyes blazing with a hatred so intense it felt like she wanted to tear me to shreds. Why are you acting so innocent? You and your dad are the good guys? And my family is all bad, is that it? You're rich, you're pretty, you're morally superior, and we're just rats in the gutter, stinking and filthy for everyone to step on. That's what you're trying to say, isn't it? If I had been born rich, I'd be 100 times kinder and more innocent than you. Cut the crap. Tiffany closed her umbrella, got into the car, and it sped away. As it passed us, the driver gunned the engine, splashing a wave of muddy water all over the three of us. Lugging our bags, we didn't find a cheap motel until 3 in the morning. That night, I came down with a high fever and was trapped in a nightmare. In my dream, I saw my dad get into a car accident. With no money for treatment, he died in the hospital. I saw my mom, cornered by Mr. Jiang with nowhere to turn, climb to the roof of a building late at night and leap off. And me, my mind grew duller and duller until I couldn't remember anything, couldn't even understand what people were saying. After being expelled from school, I was begging on the streets, digging through trash cans for food. A group of children chased after me, throwing rocks. Look, there's a crazy person. She stinks. Stinky lunatic. Stay away. Don't come any closer. I woke up screaming, drenched in a cold sweat. The dream was so real it felt like a premonition of what was to come. If I didn't deal with Tiffany and her system, this would be the tragic end for my entire family. I clenched my fists, gasping for air in the darkness, but my mind had never been clearer. Tiffany was just like her father. They couldn't see their own faults and blamed everyone else for their problems. They were greedy and envious, like vipers lying in wait. The moment your life was better than theirs, they would strike. She would not let me go. I had to find a way to destroy her system. What could possibly be so powerful that the system couldn't consume it, and would suffer a backlash instead? I thought all night, but came up with nothing. The next afternoon, after my fever broke, my parents took me back to school, and then went their separate ways to find a place to live. The moment I walked into the classroom, I could feel the other students looking at me differently. I thought even a fallen camel was bigger than a horse. Even if her dad went bankrupt, I didn't think they'd end up this bad. It looks like she lives in a slum. I didn't even know our city had places that run down. She must have been exaggerating before. Her family probably was never that rich. Claire is such a poser. The students whispered among themselves, their gazes filled with undisguised contempt and disgust. Tiffany walked over to my desk with a few of her friends and placed a stack of $100 bills on it, her face a mask of pity. Claire, I know your family is struggling. How about this? You can be my assistant at school from now on. Help me carry my homework, buy my meals from the cafeteria, and get snacks from the store. I'll pay you $3,000 a month. The students gasped. Wow, Tiffany is so generous. $3,000. A lot of people working regular jobs only make that much. Claire, Tiffany is helping you out so much. You should thank her right now. Someone else snickered quietly. Isn't that just like being a servant? So what if it's like a servant? Claire's parents are in such a bad spot. If she has any sense at all, she won't turn this job down. Claire, you're not going to refuse, are you? I kept my head down, writing in my notebook, and ignored her. One of the girls who couldn't stand it tore my notebook out of my hands, trying to force me to agree. Tiffany is talking to you. What's with the attitude? Tiffany dropped her phony kindness. She and her friends started bullying me, cornering me in the bathroom and pouring cold water on me. My poverty and my rock-bottom grades made everyone bold. No matter what they did to me, no one would stand up for me, not even Leo. One day in the cafeteria, Tiffany deliberately knocked my food tray over, and then tried to force me to kneel and apologize to her. I said nothing. I just pressed my lips together, straightened my back, and turned to leave. Leo rolled up his sleeves. Damn it, didn't you hear Tiffany tell you to stop? I'll go teach her a lesson. Leo caught up to me outside. It was hot, and everyone was hiding in the shade, so the area outside the cafeteria was empty. Suddenly, Leo lowered his voice. Claire, no matter what I say next, you need to stay calm. I think Tiffany is using some kind of curse. I stopped walking. Question mark. What the hell? From what I've observed these past few days, I've noticed she has some kind of supernatural power. Think about it. Ever since you started gaining weight, she's gotten prettier every day. Your grades tanked and she became #1 in the school. Your family went bankrupt and her dad got rich. This is no coincidence. I suspect she's using some kind of black magic to steal your luck. Seeing me standing still, Leo gave me a shove for show. What are you looking at? Then he lowered his voice again. I haven't figured out a solution yet, so just hang in there a little longer. I will save you. Leo gave me a couple of fake taps on the head and ran back toward the cafeteria. Watching his tall, strong back, I felt a mix of emotions. The system had stolen his love for me, but he was still so good to me. Such a proud person was even willing to play the part of a mole, hanging around Tiffany for my sake. What did that mean? It meant he was never in love with me to begin with. What we had was friendship. We were childhood friends, practically raised together. We used to play in the mud in our split pants as kids. My grades were always better than his, and his dad always compared him to me, even telling him, "Claire is so smart. You should marry her when you grow up, and you won't have to worry about your own kids." Leo would scoff. That's ridiculous. We're best friends. I thought he was just being stubborn. After being praised so much at school, I was pretty full of myself. I figured I was pretty smart, there was no reason for him not to like me. I had even been waiting for him to confess to me after graduation. I never imagined he really just saw me as a friend. It should have been sad news, but under the circumstances, it was a jolt of inspiration. I had found a way to beat the system. After evening study hall, I secretly asked Leo to meet me on the athletic field and told him about the system. Leo's eyes went wide. Are you serious? That's even crazier than black magic. I heard it with my own ears. Now here's what you're going to do. After hearing my plan, Leo had a complicated expression on his face. He suddenly reached out and patted my head, his voice a little choked. So you remembered all this time? It never changed for you. I nodded firmly. Never. Leo's grandfather was a decorated veteran. When we were little, both our parents were busy with their businesses and didn't have much time for us. It was Leo's grandfather who played with us. He would take out yellowed letters and read the names on them to us, one by one. Wiping his cloudy eyes, he would tell us stories of that magnificent era, an age of war and fire, where people held fast to their beliefs. It was because of the sacrifices of his generation that we have the peaceful lives we live today. Leo and I would often cry, so moved that we told his grandfather that this would be our belief too. Leo gave me a tight hug. You've got this, Claire. His chest was broad, his embrace warm and strong. I leaned my head on his shoulder, savoring the moment. Thank you for everything you're doing for me, Leo. We're definitely going to succeed. Next, Leo the mole went to work. He hinted to Tiffany that there was someone else I loved even more, that all my years of studying hard were all to get closer to this person. Tiffany was curious. Who is it? Does he not like Claire? Leo thought for a moment, then shook his head. No, he doesn't. He's too powerful. Claire is probably not even on his radar. She knows that, which is why she was trying so hard to get into Harvard, to do something to get his attention. He's her pillar of strength. Who is he? Is his family richer than yours? Leo gave a self-deprecating laugh. Compared to him, I'm nothing. Tiffany grew thoughtful. Someone that amazing. No wonder Claire is willing to be such a suck-up. It's not really being a suck-up. It's a more selfless kind of love. Once, when he was in trouble, Claire cried harder than if she'd been hurt herself. You can't even mention him. When we were kids, she'd start crying if I brought him up. If anything happened to him, Claire probably wouldn't want to live anymore. Seriously? Is Claire really that obsessed with him? Tiffany could barely hold back her laughter. Why is she always so dramatic? Even her simping has to be extreme. Tiffany was skeptical, so I started putting on a show. I studied twice as hard, and when the other girls bullied me, I didn't shed a single tear. Instead, I would clench my fists, stare into the distance, and mutter, "This little hardship won't break me. I promised you I would keep trying." For you, I'm not afraid of any suffering. Tiffany was completely convinced. That psycho Claire. On a dark and windy night, she went alone to the stage on the athletic field and summoned her system. Leo and I followed quietly behind her, our hearts pounding, as we listened to her make a wish. Claire is such a lovesick fool. No wonder she just gets pushed around. Love is worthless. I'm going to be the star of my own show. I want the best of everything. The system was cautious. Host, whose assets are you trying to plunder this time? I've told you, you must have a connection to the person. For example, a billionaire you see on the news is not possible. Understand? It must be someone you know. Tiffany's eyes gleamed in the darkness. I want to plunder the luck of the person Claire loves most. The one who makes her study so hard, who makes her keep fighting, the one she cries for, the one she cares about most in her heart. I want to plunder his luck. That's not possible. You've had no contact with that person. You can't plunder from him. The system instinctively refused, but then it ran a quick calculation and exclaimed in surprise. Ha, it's actually possible? Tiffany's face lit up with joy. I knew it. Maybe we met by chance without realizing it. For him to affect Claire this much, he must be the most powerful person I could possibly know. Plunder his. Strip away all of his luck. All of it. Turn him into a beggar. I want Claire to see her beloved godlike hero kneeling humbly at my feet. System. Are you sure? Tiffany. Absolutely, positively sure. Can you stop with the useless questions and just do it? System 321, extraction complete. ARG. The system suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream. Leo and I looked at each other, our hands clasped tightly together. It worked. That idiot Tiffany tried to plunder the fortune of the entire country. Now even her system was fried. The backlash would begin any moment. System? System. Tiffany called out a few times. When she heard no response, she didn't think much of it. Did it malfunction? What a piece of junk. Tiffany went back to her dorm, giddy with anticipation for what she'd become in the morning. How would all that luck manifest? Would she be more beautiful, smarter, richer? Would Harvard send her an early acceptance letter? Should she go buy a few lottery tickets? Oh, she was so excited. Tiffany spent the night dreaming sweet dreams. The next morning, a scream woke everyone up. I came out of the bathroom, and Chloe stared at me with her mouth wide open. Claire, all the acne on your face is gone. Your skin looks so much better. And have you lost a ton of weight? Because of the backlash, everything the system had devoured was slowly returning to me, along with Tiffany's own luck. Tiffany flung open her bed curtain and poked her head out. Who lost weight? When Chloe saw her face, she let out another scream. Oh my God! Your face is covered in bumps. You look like a toad. Are you having an allergic reaction to something? Panicked, Tiffany scrambled out of bed and ran to the bathroom to look in the mirror. My face. You should go to the hospital right away. The third mock exam is tomorrow, you can't afford to miss it. Tiffany took the day off and went to the hospital, but the doctors couldn't find a cause. They gave her some allergy medication and sent her back. She was too scared to return to school that night. The next day, she came to the exam fully disguised in a mask, glasses, and a hat. Slowly, the red bumps faded, but her face was left blotchy and uneven. Her once large eyes had narrowed into slits, and her pearly white teeth had yellowed. Her classmates started looking at her strangely. Is it just me, or is Tiffany getting uglier? Her face looks so much bigger. Did she gain weight? I don't know, but I kind of feel like this is what she looked like when she first started here as a freshman. But didn't she have a glow up? Can you have a glow down? I don't know. But look at Claire. Claire has lost so much weight. Amidst the students' chatter, Tiffany slammed her desk in frustration. So superficial. All you do all day is talk about people's looks. Isn't it boring? Can't you focus on grades for once? The homeroom teacher, holding a stack of tests, happened to be at the classroom door. Hearing this, he nodded in approval. Claire is right. Wait, what? Tiffany, that was you? The teacher tossed Tiffany's test paper onto her face. With an attitude like that. How did you score this low? You talk the talk but don't walk the walk. You've got an answer for everything, don't you? I think you're the superficial one. The grade report was posted on the blackboard, and the students were in an uproar. Tiffany, who had been first in the school, had plummeted to the bottom 200. And Claire Shun's name was right back at the top. Shame can be a powerful motivator. Excellent work, Claire. I've seen all your hard work this month. Some people have let their pride get the best of them and should learn from her. Tiffany ran out of the classroom crying. She couldn't understand how things had turned out this way. She thought it was a system malfunction and tried to summon it hundreds of times a day in her head. She even shouted for it out loud in class several times. After disrupting the lesson one too many times, the teacher told her to go home and reflect. 2 days later, her father beat her and sent her back to school. He had gone bankrupt. All his properties were repossessed. He was drowning in gambling debt, and someone had broken his leg. He had pinned all his hopes on Tiffany. After failing several exams in a row and becoming uglier by the day, Tiffany no longer wanted to be at school. But her father forced her to go, and she had nowhere else to turn. When she had good grades and a rich family, she had led the bullying. Now with the tables turned, she was the one being tormented every day. She finally, slowly, began to realize that something was wrong with her system. Tiffany lunged at me, completely unhinged. It was you. Did you get a more powerful system? You stole everything from me. It must have been you. It was the homeroom teacher's class. He angrily threw a piece of chalk at her. Are you sleepwalking? What crazy talk is this? Sit down. Tiffany went wild, trying to hit me, but Leo grabbed her arm and pulled her aside. Don't touch Claire. It was you two. You conspired together to steal my luck. Tiffany rambled incoherently, telling everyone what had happened. At first, the students listened as if it were a joke, but as she went on, their expressions grew serious. I don't know, it feels like she's telling the truth. Claire's family suddenly went bankrupt, and her grades got worse and worse. Yeah, I thought it was weird too. And Tiffany started to look a bit like Claire. Did you guys notice? Her mind is so twisted. So her system failed? Serves her right. Tiffany was completely out of control, flailing her arms and legs. A few boys had to hold her down while the teacher called her parents to come pick her up. Her father rushed to the school. In front of all the teachers and students, he grabbed Tiffany's hair and slapped her repeatedly. But after a few slaps, a large patch of her scalp came off in his hand. Tiffany collapsed to the ground, coughing up mouthfuls of blood as her skin began to crack. All the students were terrified, screaming and backing away. Tiffany turned her head to look at me. Who was it? I'm suffering the backlash. Tell me, who has that much power? Who has that much luck? I didn't speak. I shifted my gaze to the flag waving in the wind on the field and raised my right hand in a salute. The country will protect every child who grows up under its flag. Tiffany followed my gaze. A look of dawning comprehension, followed by disbelief, crossed her face. You're insane. How could anyone? Pfft. Tiffany spat out a huge mouthful of blood and passed out. I heard she was dead before they even got to the hospital. Her father, having beaten his own daughter to death in front of the entire school, would face the full penalty of the law. The day I received my acceptance letter from Harvard was the same day my dad celebrated his company going public. Our family threw a huge party. During the celebration, Leo's dad kept winking at him. Such a wonderful daughter-in-law. Leo, my boy, you need to act fast. I overheard and smiled, raising my glass to Mr. Zhou. We're just best friends. Leo doesn't like me. Leo gave me a meaningful look. Best friends. I think you've misunderstood something. What did you say? I didn't hear him clearly and leaned closer. Leo casually draped his arm over my shoulder, tilted his head back, and downed the drink in his glass. Nothing. Since we're best friends, come on, let's go on a trip. Okay. After dinner, we were walking in the garden. Leo's arm stayed naturally around my shoulders, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Leo pointed to a rose bush in the corner. Yesterday, that was just a bud. Yeah, it's summer. It bloomed overnight. What's so strange about that? A smile played on Leo's lips. Exactly. People are like flowers. It's not strange at all. And